Charlotte the Scientist is Squished, written by Camille Andros and illustrated by Brianne Farley. Charlotte the Scientist is Squished. Charlotte was a serious scientist. Protective glasses, a lab coat, and a magnifying glass were her essential scientific equipment, plus a clipboard for important notes. Charlotte solved problems by conducting experiments that followed the scientific method, which is question, hypothesis, experiment, observation, conclusion. And Charlotte had a problem. She was squished. She was squished at the table. She was squished in the tub. And sometimes she was even squished on the toilet. It had become impossible to conduct her experiments. Her test tubes were taken, her beakers got broken, and her specimens were spoiled. Charlotte needed some space. Time to use the scientific method. Step 1, ask a question. How can I get some space around here? Step 2, form a hypothesis. Hypothesis, if I can get rid of my brothers and sisters, I will have room to be a real scientist. She tried another experiment to make herself disappear, but that didn't work either. If she was going to get some space, she would have to go there. Or look at her carrot rocket. She's landed and she's running around. Step 4, make and record observations. Charlotte was no longer squished at the table. She was no longer squished in the tub, and Charlotte could take as long as she wanted on the toilet. Space was splendid. Finally, step 5, draw conclusions. She had all the room she needed to conduct some very important experiments using her protective glasses, lab coat, and magnifying glass. Her test tubes were tidy, her beakers looked brilliant, and her specimens were sparkling. Her hypothesis was correct. She finally had room to be a scientist. The only problem was there was no one to talk to at mealtime. No one to blow bubbles with in the tub. And what was Charlotte supposed to do when she ran out of toilet paper? Hello? Space was lonely. Back to step 2, form a new hypothesis. If I can have friends in space, then I won't be lonely and I can be a real scientist. Time for more experiments. Charlotte tried chocolate, but it was too tempting. Her balloons kept floating away. And robot bunnies were poor conversationalists. They got ruined in the bathtub and tangled in the toilet paper. Oop. Charlotte missed her family. She even missed being squished. She tried one last experiment. Oh, looks like she's flying back home. And she reached a new conclusion. Charlotte didn't need outer space. She just needed her own space. Oh, look, now she's hanging out in her rocket. In the lab with Charlotte. Being a scientist means asking questions and looking for answers. Scientists ask all kinds of questions. They ask to find out how something works, or how they can make something work better, or how they can help people. Some scientists study nature, like animals, insects, and plants. Others study stars and planets, and some find cures for diseases. Still others fly into outer space, or dig for dinosaur bones, or build robots and rockets. Every scientist starts by asking questions. The 5 steps of the scientific method. Step 1, ask a question. What, when, who, which, why, where, or how? Charlotte asked, how can I get some space around here? Step 2, form a hypothesis. A A hypothesis is a best guess answer to your question. Usually it includes the words if and then. Charlotte's first hypothesis was, if I can get rid of my brothers and sisters, then I will have room to be a scientist. What was Charlotte's second hypothesis? Step 3, test the hypothesis. Experiment. An experiment is a test to help find the answer to the questions. Charlotte tried an experiment to make herself disappear. What other experiments did Charlotte do to help answer her question? Step 4, make and record observations. Carefully watch and write down what happens during the experiment. When Charlotte went to space, she noticed she had lots of room to be a scientist, but she was lonely. What did Charlotte observe in her other experiments? Step 5, form a conclusion. A conclusion is the information learned from the experiment. What was Charlotte's big conclusion at the end of the story? And Charlotte says, I want to know how you are being a scientist, at home, with your friends, or in the classroom. Follow the scientific method to answer a question, and then write and tell me all about it. And there's her address, or email me, charlottethescientist@com.